Now, how about them damn Celtics?
And we are back with another episode of How About Them Celtics. Sam and I are here recording on Tuesday, October 15th, after the Celtics' final preseason game, a loss to the Toronto Raptors, 119-118, came down to the wire. Davidson and Jordan Walsh did their best to bring the Celtics all the way back after a second quarter comeback, but it's too much to overcome. Raptors took the win. Celtics finished the preseason at 4-1. A pretty entertaining game, all things considered, considering it was a preseason game, but it was a fun one.
This one's on me. I did halftime hot takes for Celtics blog, and the title of my article was halftime hot takes, the Celtics may not be beatable, because the Celtics went down by $1 billion. Toronto couldn't miss in the first quarter. And it looked like the inverse of the game that we saw on Sunday, where the Celtics actually played their guys, and all of a sudden they couldn't put the ball in the basket, and they looked really bad. And then halftime came, and they had a 1-point lead. And I was like, you know what? They might be invincible, because that was pretty much the worst start they could have had, yet they still managed to come out on top at the end of the first half, which is commendable in itself. And in fairness to the starters, this game was not lost, technically, while they were on the floor, even though I think they left the game with like a 5-point deficit when Tatum and White finally checked out. Overall, it was a pretty fun watch, exciting for the last preseason game. And as far as the preseason is concerned, this is probably the closest we saw to a regular season rotation. So that's probably the most fun place to start.
Yeah, it was close. Obviously, Drew Holiday and Sam Hauser were inactive for the game, so you can only take too much from it from that perspective. But Jordan Walsh got some real minutes in there. It looks like he could be a member of the rotation for stints, which is fun.
Most off the bench. Most minutes off the bench today.
Yeah, that was inflated a little bit by the fact that he stayed in when the rest of the bench guys sat. But do you want to start there, or do you want to start with the starters?
I mean, we'll start with the starters, I suppose.
All right. We can go Tatum. I think this was Tatum's best game of the preseason. He got a little 3 happy there by the time his minutes were up. But he was really the reason they were able to come back in the first place. Like he was absolutely dominant in that second quarter. He was hitting his threes, but more importantly than that, the Raptors just fell into the trap that every team just decides to do of let's double Jayson Tatum and just give him the easiest passes you'll ever see. And Tatum did a phenomenal job of making those passes. Even when he did get a little 3 happy, he was still, pretty effective as a passer, as a defender and that stuff. So I thought Tatum looked really good in this game. He finished 24, 8, 3 steals, looked good on defense too, except for when Scotty Barnes decided to be Steph Curry in the first quarter. Like I said, I think this was probably his best game in the preseason we've seen from an all-around perspective.
Yeah, he looked really dominant, especially in that second quarter. But overall, like even in the second half, he carried it over as they continued to try and claw back after they kind of came out a bit flat and gave up the lead again. He was by far the best guy for the Celtics tonight. It's tough to say he was the best guy in this game because Scotty Barnes and Grady Dick played out of their minds. But even then, he played a pretty complete game. Scotty Barnes near triple-double. But Tatum played just so much more under control than he did. Tatum only had 1 turnover. Barnes had 5. And this is more of the Tatum I think we can expect to see in the regular season. You mentioned it. He was setting up his teammates, and he just took whatever Toronto was giving to him. That was the most exciting part of this. There was a second half stretch where Tatum was just taking every jump shot that was given to him, and he was like, let's see how far I can take this. My jumper is fixed storyline.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, even with that, he was only 1-2 shots below 50% from the field. Not bad, all things considered. Pretty happy with what we saw from him.
Yeah. And like I said, he got 3 happy, but still 38.5% from 3 in this one. It's just the volume was probably a little higher than it needed to be. It did look like he was just saying, all right, let's see if I can find it again. And he didn't. And again, it's preseason, so it doesn't matter that much. But that was something to note. Jaylen Brown had 19 points, 1 assist, 1 steal. Looked really, really good in the first half, was getting wherever he wanted. And then in the third quarter, sort of kind of let go of the rope a little bit. He had a really rough third quarter. He just turning the ball over, driving into space recklessly, missing some open passes, air balls. He got 3 happy too. He was 0-5 from 3. Defensively, he got beat on a back cut in 1. He got bodied by Scotty Barnes in the lane. It wasn't JB's night. Like I said, first quarter-ish, maybe second quarter a little bit in there as well. He had that nice back down on Ochai Agbaji on the inbounds play, got to his spot a few times for some middies, but overall, just I would say a pretty less than stellar night for JB in this one.
Yeah, it came at a weird time because Jake and I were having a nice circle jerk for Jaylen on the pregame show. We were talking about, man, He just looks like he went up yet another level this preseason, which he had up until today. He was really under control and not turning the ball over. He was comfortable dribbling into traffic. And then somehow today that all went away. He was getting stripped. Mobo took the ball straight from Jaylen off a snatchback. By the way, Mobo, our guy, looked pretty good in this game. He's a fun watch at the very least. Um, but Jaylen has room to improve throughout the season, which is, I suppose, a good thing. We saw flashes of what we should be excited about, but this was a little reminder that maybe don't get too excited. Just level your expectations. The bad can still rear its head sometimes, but do I expect it to come out all the time? No, I don't. Jalen has been far more consistent than he used to be. He showed that through the end of last season into the playoffs, winning both the playoff MVP awards. It's very possible for him to turn it up. And tonight could have just been a very mellow day. They realize it's the last day of the preseason. It's the last time they play a game that doesn't matter for a while. So I think you can tie that into some of the silly mistakes that some of these guys made.
Mhm. Yeah, it just looked like he was a bit too eager to score. Like he wasn't looking to pass in this one, which is fine.
Okay.
And it's a preseason game, so maybe he wanted to get some legs under him in that perspective. But still, um, next guy, we'll talk Al Horford. First and only preseason game.
Still very
The
handsome.
rust. The rust was there. 1 of 6 from the field, 0 of 4 from 3. 2 rebounds, 1 assist. Just it looked like this was his first preseason game. I'll put it that way.
It's a good thing that they had him play today then. I don't know if the Celtics could afford that on
Sure.
opening night. I think they need him to show up and put a couple baskets in, get a couple more rebounds, be a little bit more impactful. Game low -29 isn't the greatest plus minus I've ever seen. Not to say that that's entirely his fault, but it was good to see him out there. I mean, Al Horford's one of my favorites. He's clearly been a member of the team forever. He's somebody who really has committed to being a Celtic. He has sacrificed. He came off the bench last year, and seeing him get a ring next week is going to be so exciting. I'm happy he was back. It was great to see his very beautiful face in the pregame interview with Abby. It was a great way to start the broadcast. It's just sad they couldn't get a win for the big man.
Yeah. I'm not worried about Al Horford. Nobody should be, but just wasn't really
Title of the
there.
video: Is it time to be worried about Al Horford?
No. Derrick White, 23 points, second leading scorer behind Tatum in this game. So weird Derrick White game. It felt like he was like the guy for stretches. Made 5 threes, but he took 14, made 7 shots, but he took 20, 3 blocks. He was pretty good defensively, but he was like on and off. Like he was super hot or super cold, and there was no in between. So it was a good game for Derrick White, but he took a lot of shots, and he wasn't on for the whole night. It felt like.
Yeah, it felt like he was doing a little bit too much at times, but at the same time, the game was built for him to try and do too much today. He kind of
Yeah.
took on Jalen's normal role because I think Jalen came out of this. Well, he played 6 less minutes than Derek White did because it felt like Jalen kind of came out way before everybody else, which is fine. And Derek White was left to be the second scorer, which he can do sometimes. Tonight, he didn't entirely have it, but we got a preview of Derek White's extended bag when they were playing the Nuggets in Abu Dhabi, and he clearly is comfortable creating for himself, driving to the rim. I think we're going to see stronger shooting performances from him, even on a high volume. I believe he can do it. I know you're a big Derek White person too, so I'd imagine you agree that he's not going to shoot 7 for 20 every time he takes 20 shots.
Yeah, he'll be fine. Again, I'm not really worried about anybody in the preseason. It is what it is, right? They'll bounce back. I don't think there's any need to be concerned. Payton Pritchard looked pretty good when he was with the starters. It's nice to know that a guy can step in when Drew Holiday's out and be just as effective. He was 5 of 10 from 3 when he was playing with the starters. He missed a couple shots at the end, so he finished 5 of 11 from deep, 5 of 12 from the field. 15 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. Like, this is everything you want to see from Pritchard playing alongside Tatum and Derrick White and Jaylen Brown and all the big guys. A lot of his points came with the Jayson Tatum and the rest lineup. Celtics made this comeback with Jayson Tatum, Payton Pritchard, Jordan Walsh,
Right.
Xavier Tillman, and Luke Cornett on the floor, and that lineup looked pretty good.
Pritchard
Pritchard was a
caught
big
fire.
part of that. Yeah, he's a big part.
And in theory, it shouldn't be surprising. Oh, you want Peyton Pritchard to do what Drew Holiday does on offense? Sit there, catch and shoot from the corner? Yeah, he should be able to do that, right? This is a guy that we've seen get hot several times throughout his career. It's become almost a trend now. Throughout the playoffs, he had moments felt like every other game where he was making an impactful shot, he was stepping up in a big moment. If they're going to rest Drew Holiday this year, which this entire preseason, if there's anything that we take away, is that they are going to rest Drew Holiday this year when they have the chance to. I think half of that is because they believe Payton Pritchard is ready to be there and step in when Holiday is taking the night off. And with what we've seen in the preseason, they should feel comfortable with that. He can make threes. I don't know exactly where the preseason numbers can be found. I'm going to open up on NBA.com and see if it tells me. It probably won't. Let's see. I have all 5 preseason games right ahead of me. Game 1, 6 of 12 from 3. Game 2, 2 of 3. Game 3, 3 of 7. Games 4 and 5, 5 of 11 in each. That man did not shoot below 40% from 3 in any of his preseason appearances.
Gary
His
Washburn
lowest was
tweeted
42.9.
19 of 37 in preseason from 3 for Pritchard.
Over 50% is
Yes.
crazy.
Over 50%.
On a high volume.
Yeah, he's on
He
fire.
shot over 10 in 3 of the 5.
Yeah, he averaged, what is that? 5 games over 7, like 7.2 per game. And he made 3.9 per game. It's pretty good. That's pretty good for Payton Pritchard. 6th Man of the Year campaign is alive and well, in my opinion. I'm going to Walsh off the bench. Jordan Walsh, 7 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 2 assists, 1 and 3. But he was really good in the minutes where he was playing with the regular guys. And I think that's more important. Like, it wasn't quite as effective late in the game. He had that big layup driving to the rim and almost hit a game winner at the end as well. But when he was playing with like Tatum and them, and he was playing with the starters, he looked like, okay, this guy could probably play rotational minutes if you need him to. You're still probably going to see Sam Hauser in those spots. You're going to see Drew Holiday more. So Walsh probably won't get 20 minutes a night. He'll probably get around 10, 11-ish, like the percent minutes. But this should prove to you like, okay, you can see an outline where this guy could play with the starters for stretches, or at the very least down the line in a couple of years. So this was a really encouraging game for Walsh, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, was the first guy off the bench with the starters. Now, you can take that with a grain of salt because, once again, Drew Holiday and Hauser were out, like we mentioned. But still, he was comfortable. He was in there getting in the mix on defense. He wasn't credited with this. He has 1 steal in this game, but the one I'm thinking of in the first half, he was not credited for anything. He was involved after Tatum dunked on Bruno Fernando. The next possession, the Celtics stole the ball and Tatum got another fast break dunk. Walsh had a hand in that turnover, and he wasn't really credited in the box score. But he was active on defense. He's been active on the glass. He's proven a willingness to hustle. He's showing a confidence to shoot the 3 now. These are all components that it takes to get in Joe Mazzulla's circle of trust. If you're going to get in the rotation, you have to do all of these things. If you want consistent minutes, you cannot just play one side of the ball. And last year, Jordan Walsh, wasn't bulky enough to defend effectively. He's still not quite there, but he's showing an ability to be in the right place at the right time. He's showing an ability to disrupt things, which is very good. And now he's confident enough to make a 3 every once in a while, too. So if he gets real minutes this year, it shouldn't be surprising. He is now the prime candidate to take the O'Shea minutes whenever they may come.
He's got to be. Yeah, I think he's the only choice at this point. I want to lump in. Actually, no, we'll go one by one. Xavier Tillman in a game where he shot 0 of 3 was awesome. He was really, really good in a game that he just couldn't make a shot. He had 8 rebounds. Again, didn't score, but he had 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Was great on defense. Was killing the offensive glass. He had 3, but they were all in big spots when the Celtics needed some buckets to come back. This was another example of Xavier Tillman can play real minutes on this team this year. And in my opinion, more importantly, he can play the 4. Like, he can stay in there and play the 4 spot next to Luke Cornett, next to Al Horford. Like, his versatility is a super underrated skill set. And for him to be as impactful as he was in this game without making a shot, like, should give you some confidence heading into the season.
Yeah, 8 rebounds is a good night for Tillman. As an undersized big guy, at least height-wise, that many boards is pretty impressive. It sucks that the threes didn't drop today, because if they dropped today, then we could have been all the way on the Kool-Aid with Xavier Tillman going into the season, because this is the first time throughout the preseason we've really seen him struggle shooting the ball, and it feels pretty rare at this point.
Yeah, but again, sometimes shots don't fall. It is what it is. Other than that, he was great. Luke Cornett, also really good in this game. 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 big offensive rebounds. We can sort of lump his conversation in with the next guy. it does just feel like Mishkane is going to be the odd man out of this big run rotation. Like he was fine
Yeah, it
in this
does.
game. He scored, or he didn't score, but he had 4 rebounds, which were big. But he was just like, this spacing was like, they even referenced it on the broadcast. Like the spacing was just, it's just not the same with him on the floor, because if Al Horford's the nugger spot, Nemi can't be. And I know it's the same with Luke, but Luke's so good at, like, he's a lot better at setting screens. He's a lot better at catching those passes in the nugger spot. He's a lot better at like playing within the flow of the offense and creating space for himself. It just feels like Nemi is just standing around a little too often. He's not exactly in the flow of things as much as Cornette is. Cornette and Tillman just look a lot more effective in the backup big man role than Keita has so far. And I think that means you're probably going to see a lot more of them in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat of an indictment on Keita, but at the same time, it's not, because both of those guys have just come back to the Celtics this fall, and they have looked like they improved drastically over the summer. Like, sure, Cornette's still doing all the same things he was doing last year, and he's a finisher at the rim, and he's a big body, and he does a decent job of playing defense in the paint. But at the same time, you have this newfound confidence in him when it comes to making the right read quickly off a pass. That's a pretty strong weapon to have when you're getting into the Celtics rotation. Of course, Tillman gives you the stretch big angle, which hopefully is there in the regular season, and hopefully the regular season doesn't look like today in that sense. But both of those guys have impressed me, and it's really what has set the Celtics apart from these other teams that went out and made moves this summer. The Celtics just didn't have to. They got everyone to come back, and they got them to come back and work harder and get better.
Exactly. Shout out to them. And I mean, like I said, Keita's not a bad player. Just the other guys look a lot better. Ron Harper and Baylor Shireman were pretty nothingness in this game. Baylor Shireman had some nice drives. He got 4 free throws, but JD Davidson, man, oh baby, what a surge from that guy! 12 points, a steal and a block, a big block at the end of the game. There, 3 for 3, 2 of 2, had a 4-point play as well. He looked like just a monster in the last 3 minutes of this game.
Yeah, he came in impressively after watching 43 minutes of basketball and hit the ground running in a tight game. I don't think people understand how difficult that would be to do. You haven't moved around since shoot around coming out of halftime. You've been sitting on the bench. You're probably not loose. And yet he comes in and almost wills the Celtics to a win. I don't want to say by himself, but being the main force behind them making one final push against the Raptors is pretty impressive. And it sucks for me because I've always been anti JD and pro Springer. And tonight was a big time Davidson game with no Springer featured at all. No Springer and no Drew Peterson and no
Yep.
Lonnie Walker. So that might tell you a little bit, one, about what will happen when they find a roster spot, and two, who has a more realistic chance of getting into Joe Mazzulla's rotation. But we also saw Ron Harper and Shireman doesn't look remotely ready. And Ron Harper is someone that I don't think any of us think are going to make the roster. So
No,
take it with a grain of salt.
yeah, we'll see. JD Davidson did look good though, and we'll see what happens with the rest of them. Briefly before we wrap up here, what the hell was up with the Raptors in the first quarter? I'm at softball, right? So I missed pregame, and I was watching on my phone, and I watched every second of the game. I just had to pause my way through the first quarter because I would like go in the field and play and stuff. But I get back, and I'm just seeing like Scotty Barnes 3, Scotty Barnes 3, Scotty Barnes 3, Grady Dick Midi, Grady Dick. I'm like, what are we even doing? And the Celtics weren't playing like airtight, I'm going to lock you up on the perimeter defense, but like Tatum was there. Tatum was playing as much defense as one would probably play in a normal Scotty Barnes 3-point attempt, and he was just making them all. This was the classic, in my opinion. Remember the Pelicans game last year where it's like, oh yeah, we're okay with these guys shooting threes, and then the second half, the Celtics blew them out of the water because the guys they were okay with shooting threes stopped making them. That was this game, except that they didn't like play the starters for the entire game. Like, look at the second quarter. The Raptors got outscored 19-0 in the first.
Didn't make a single three.
Minutes. Yeah. So this was what an insane game. Like, shout out Scotty Barnes, he played great. Shout out Grady Dick, he looks awesome. It's just what a ridiculous 3-point shooting first quarter for the Raptors of all teams.
So thankful that this happened in a preseason game. If this happened in a game that actually counted towards the standings, I probably would have thrown something.
Yeah.
Or at least been angrily tweeting. Like that would be like someone would have had to put up with me being upset. Probably would have been Jack. We would have sat down here and Jack would have been like, I'm going to leave.
You say someone as if you don't know who it would be.
Well, it could have been my dad.
Okay. Yeah, no, this was a wild game for the Raptors from 3 in the first quarter specifically, but
Season is over.
preseason's over. Regular season
No, the
starts on
season's over.
Tuesday.
They lost.
What do you
They're
mean?
cooked.
Oh yeah, the Celtics. Yeah, they're done. It's over. They can't go undefeated.
It's over.
How did they do last preseason? What was their last preseason record? No, I'm curious. I'll look it up.
I know I think they beat Philly.
They were 4-1 last year.
Rip it off.
So hey, a 4-1 preseason, pretty good start to the year. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, I think that's all we got. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and all that. Sam, take it out.
Hey, thank you very much for listening and watching. Make sure you subscribe, leave a like, comment, tell us what you thought of the final preseason game. Tell us what you thought of the preseason as a whole. If you hit the bell, you'll get the notifications every time Jack and I upload a video, which is 5 a.m. every morning. New pods Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday game recaps like this one the morning after each game and other videos in between to keep you busy in between the Celtics games. You'll also find our streams on the channel, so the bell will tell you about those too. Pre-game, half hour before every single game. It's always a ton of fun. Come hang out. You can find us on Spotify and Apple too. All pods and recaps will be there for you. If you're more of an audio person, that's fine. If you follow, they'll go right to your feed. You can leave a 5-star review on Apple. We would appreciate that very much. You can email us, HBTCpod. Again, tell us what you thought of the preseason as a whole. Tell us who your winners and losers are. Tell us your Atlas. It doesn't matter. We love to hear from you guys. We'll be reading those emails tomorrow. Or today as you're hearing this. So get them in now. You can find us on socials at How About Them C's for Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Facebook's just the name of the pod. All streams are there. They're on YouTube. They're on Twitter. Jack's Twitter's at JacksOneNBA. Mine's at Samuel France NBA. That's it for us. Bye.
Tic-tac-toe.